La 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 lattes were a. La 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 the lattes were a. La 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 lattes were a. This your girl Latte, and I'm back with another video. Of course, if you just got and clicked on to this video, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share, so that way others can become aware, along with clicking that bell so you can also be notified when I make another video. All right, today's title and video will definitely be about mental communication. Mental communication. What is mental communication? Mental communication is basically being able to communicate your mental. Be able to explain your feelings. Be able to talk about what it is that you're going through. An expression of self. Like if someone asked you, how are you doing? The response that you would give would be a mental communication. It would be mentally letting someone know how you're feeling. A lot of people don't know how to mentally communicate, and it's not a one sex or sided thing. It's not just a female thing. It's a female and male thing. It comes from both sides. Let me break it down to you like this. How does mental communication for men go? Most men don't speak on their feelings. That's the first failure in mental communication. Secondly, for men, they don't like to come off as if they're weak, because they were taught, or a lot of households were taught, far as from the male aspect, you don't do that. You don't come off as if you're not on or up to your game. You understand? Because as a man, you're supposed to always come off as strong, even though expressing yourself does not make you weak. Thirdly, men come off unemotional a lot of the times, which make them seem uncaring because they don't express or talk about their feelings. But what it really is a miss of mental communication. Whereas for men, it's easier to be quiet than to talk. On the other side of that, we have women. Men mostly say that women talk too much because we overly express our feelings a lot of the times. So that way we feel a person wouldn't be able to say we didn't let them know how we felt. Secondly, when it comes to women, women are a lot more harder these days, being that there is a lot more single family homes where women have to take on the role of a man, to where some women become mentally challenged in the factors of being able to communicate their feelings just as a female. You understand what I mean? They have to come off a lot more taking on the man role. Thirdly, women feel they have to be, let me say it this way, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm one-sided, because one thing I'm not, I'm for both sides, the man and the female. That's why I'm actually having this conversation. But thirdly, I just want to express it in the right way. Women feel like even though they speak a lot, they're not heard as often. That's the best way to explain it. Oh, let me do this thumbnail. That's how they do it. Okay, right. Back into the conversation. Mental communication. Learning to communicate your mental. It does not have to be as hard or taskful as some people make it. But because a lot of people get shut down in the factors of communicating their feelings, it becomes a thing of the mental where they start to close themselves off. I'm just not going to talk about it. A lot of times people feel like men don't care, when in all reality, they actually do. They just don't know how to mentally communicate that they care. And because they don't mentally communicate how much they care as much as women do, they come off as non-caring. But they have things that they go through as well. It doesn't have to be a male or female thing that decides whether you go through something. That's a human thing. Just some people are able to communicate a little bit better what it is and how it is that they're dealing with something. Mental stressing becomes mental depression. That's a form of mental illness. And when I've been, or as I have been making these videos to tap into mental illness, you'd be surprised how many people I've spoken to that let me know they have challenges of their own. It's just they don't express it. They don't communicate it. They don't put it out there. You understand? But that does not mean it don't exist in both men and women. Like I said, women just know how to communicate themselves, or they do communicate about themselves a little bit more. You understand when it comes? Okay. Men have hard childhoods. Women have hard childhoods. Women have bad relationships. Men have bad relationships. Women have financial problems. Men have financial problems. Women have families. Men have families. I mean, women have emotional declines. Men have emotional declines too. But the stigma is put out there to the fact is that a man has to carry himself as if he's all right all the time. And that alone will beat a person up, because then that means you're putting up a persona just to be able to get through your everyday. I'm not going to talk to people about something that I feel they're not going to understand anyway from my perspective. And that's how men take it a lot of the times anyway. Like, I'm going to talk, but I'm still not going to be heard, because a lot of times in conversations, especially when it comes down to relationship wise, when men and women get to the factors of having a mental communication, it goes wrong, because even though there's two people in one conversation, one person is being heard and one person is just listening. Even if they don't agree, they don't put their input, because to change the narrative of what's being said is only going to cause another communication problem. It's not going to go right. So most times they feel like, all right, I'm just going to let a person say what it is that they have to say. Don't nobody know what it is that I got going on, or what I'm doing, or what it is that I'm thinking. So whatever they may think, that is not my concern. Which, it goes that way most of the time. Whereas I've noticed, even from the aspect of being a woman and being around other women, there's a lot of feminists out here. There's a lot of one-sided women out here. It's a lot of not give or take people. It's just, excuse me, take. Some women feel like emotionally, you just have to be there for me. I don't need to be there for you emotionally. As a man, you're supposed to be able to be my protective agent, my support, my whatever it is that I need. But not realizing that on the other side of that coin, my bad, not coin, it's also needed as well. So when there's no real mental communication, it causes mental depression in both, because some people feel like they talk too much and some people feel like they don't speak enough, which both can be hazardous, because you know the old saying, a closed mouth don't get fed, and you know the old saying, a person that's always talking can't be listening. It goes both ways. It goes hand in hand. So when it comes down to the factors of mental communication, it comes off different in men and women. Women will mentally communicate and physically and emotionally and verbally communicate their feelings, whereas a man will shut down and keep his feelings to himself, which causes mental illness. Because if you're not talking to somebody, who you talking to? I don't know what's going on with this light right now. It's tripping out, but if you're not talking to nobody, who you talking to? You talking to yourself. That means you coming to yourself with the questions, and you also coming to yourself for the answers. That doesn't mean it's always going to come out right. That don't mean it's going to always come out wrong either. But it's mental damage to oneself to not be able to mentally communicate how they're actually feeling. Because most men, they're told how they feel or how they feel. People will ask a man how they feel and tell them how they feel at the same time. Whereas a woman can be telling a man how she feel and still feel like still feel like he doesn't know how she feel at all, when all he's heard is how she feel. So let's learn how to mentally communicate with others. There's nothing wrong with sharing a piece of yourself with someone. Try it. Men, you don't have to feel weak because you have something to say far as what's going on with you in the inside. And I'm going to be honest. I've been talking about this, and it's the truth. That's where a lot of domestic violence come from, because people don't know how to mentally communicate their feelings with abrupt and turmoil. And where there's turmoil, there's definitely a road of disaster. There's definitely a road of disaster, which turns into physical abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, and some people that have been abused in situations will now move out of those relationships into other relationships and become the mental, physical, or verbal abuser. Because that's what they've been taking on so long. It's become a habit that they've formed to dish out to others. You know, like the saying, hurt people hurt people. It's a real thing, because if all I know how to do is hurt, all I'm going to do is display hurt. If I don't know love, I can't show love. I can't give love in a situation where I don't know how or have had it communicated to myself. I'm going to give off the energy in which I've taken in. And if that's hurt, then the energy that I'm going to put out is going to be the energy of hurt. And sometimes people don't mean to actually hurt others. They just be casualties. I'm going to just be honest. Do people or do adults or as an adult know right from wrong? Yes. But mentally, when you're coming to yourself and you're answering yourself, who is also there to tell you whether you're wrong or not? So with that being said, when you go into a situation with someone else, as adults, we don't get disciplined. We don't get popped. We don't have parents in situations to tell us, no, you don't do that. And then there's some parents that condone the mental whatever they done created, that makes people feel the things that they're doing or done is all right. But some people in certain situations actually be casualties of mental illness. Because if I cannot collectively put my thoughts together or process or actually make decisions within my best judgment, if it's not me making good judgments for myself, how am I making good judgments for somebody else? It just does not make sense. It doesn't equally make sense. So in situations where a person go, how could you do this to me? Why did you do this to me? I thought you... In those cases, some people did know right from wrong. At that moment, mentally, they were not strong enough to make the decision to not be wrong. because mentally they felt the decision that they made was right. It's not until later. That's why you hear people say, oh, you ain't feel wrong or you ain't feel bad until you got caught. No, I actually knew I was wrong the whole time. I just didn't know how to mentally handle myself to make it right. So now that you have brought it to my attention, or I've got caught, I have no choice but to put forth some type of explanation for myself, even if I don't know how. That's why when most people explain themselves in certain situations, the other people or the other person feel like it's bullshit. Like, you're all right, you just telling me anything. Sometimes in that person's mind, they actually feel like they telling you the truth. It just sounds like a bunch of bullshit because they don't know how to mentally communicate to let you know what the situation actually is. So, today's title, like I said, mental communication. Learn how to mentally communicate with people so that way you can get a better understanding sometimes of yourself, along with getting an understanding of who it is that you're dealing with. And as far as men and women, there is no difference in the factors of having mental situations. It's just people mentally deal with it different. And men are forced, because of society, to deal with things the way that they do. Because if they handle it any other way, then they come off as weak. Whereas now, on the other side, they're forced to deal with women that overly communicate. Not pointing no fingers, not saying it in a bad way, so don't come at me for this. Women overly communicate their feelings, which also makes a male shut down to feel like, if you already know how I feel, there's no need for me to tell you how I feel. What are we discussing? And some people, when they mentally communicate, they mentally badger. Mentally badgering someone is forcefully putting you, or forcing your views off on someone else. Because if you're mentally communicating with someone, it's a give or take situation. I'm giving you a little information, you giving me a little information. When you just throwing information, and another person never gets to input their information, that can be overwhelming as well. Because then it can seem like it's a you situation. So me don't matter. You know what I mean? So this is a super Saturday, and this is La 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 Latte coming to you from Latte's World. In the beginning of the month, I had spoke about doing a little giveaway for Christmas, but I had some things that I dealt with throughout the month that kind of had changed that, situation, along with the factors of me doing Vlogmas. I am going to be doing some more videos with the kids, but I definitely need to get these mental videos out there because everybody needs a mental check-in. And there's a real big stigma in the Black community that mental illness is not a thing, when that's where the most mental illness sits. If you talk to the average Black person, and it's not from a racist format because other races deal with their problems as well. They also deal with mental illness. So don't think I'm just checking out on the Black card. But what I'm saying about the Black community, they ward off the factors of their mental illness faster than any race. Black people don't think they ain't got nothing going on, ain't nothing wrong. Like everything is good. And then you have a lot of alcoholism, drug abuse, and other situations going on because instead of people recognizing that they actually have a problem, they find coping mechanisms to deal with something that they don't feel they're dealing with in the first place. But if you're not dealing with something, what are you trying to cope with? What are you covering up? Because that's what those things are. I mean, most people abuse a substance or become an alcoholic because they don't like to or don't want to deal with or face things that they have either dealt with or dealing with in their everyday life. So they do something to take their mind off of those things. That's why you see, oh, an alcoholic is never sober. Yeah, it gets to the point where they don't want to think about it no time. So anytime they're sober, because it's gonna come back around, it don't disappear. So anytime you're in your sober mind state and those thoughts re-arise, a person that has an addiction, what are they going to do? Run to what they're addicted to. That's not dealing with the problem. That's creating a bigger problem. So make sure y'all check into y'all mental. All right? That's a must. Must. Because don't get it twisted. Mental illness can turn into mental wellness. It's not something that makes you donned or damned for life. It does not make you an outcast in your community, society, or the situation that you are in. The more you deal with it, the better you can become for yourself and others. Remember that. And this is Latte, and I'm out. La 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 lattes were a.